Alright, so welcome to our third episode of Have a Beer With Us. I am Jeremy Clarkson, this is my co-host,
Zach HABWU.
and this is our guest today,
Aaron Turner.
Alright.
Sorry for our long hiatus. We've had quite the adventurous couple of weeks. I myself got into a car accident, maybe intentionally, more likely unintentionally, but I now have a fancy new rod in my legs, so walking around's been a adventure to say the least. So sorry about our little hiatus, but we're back.
Yep.
So, how does the tempo of the show normally go? You kind of encouraged me not to look at previous episodes so that this one was a little bit more genuine. What do you guys usually go for? Is it literally just have a beer and hang out?
Yeah, basically, yeah, we'll talk.
Fair enough.
You know, if there's something we disagree on, we just, keep it civil. We're not here to hate each other, we're just here to
So do you
discuss
tend
ideas.
to go towards more heated topics, or what ideas tend to come up?
Kind of the topic of the day. There's enough going on now that I don't think we'll have an issue
There's
coming
no
up
lack.
with something.
Yeah.
Certainly no lack.
Especially in debatability, it's just like there's so many different points of view, even if you're
Yes.
on the same side about things,
And
or even from the same direction on things.
Even with
it's
that,
just
you
like-
should be debating yourself.
yeah,
Right.
You should always question your own decisions.
and judgments.
I don't really trust people who are like super assured of themselves. Like, I know this is a fact. I'm like,
There's been a lot of things that I thought I knew for a fact too, until I was educated otherwise.
So actually, I was speaking with one of our coworkers earlier. One thing I'm not super sure on is there's the basis of victimless crimes. If you read Rothbard, if you read a myriad of those more anarcho-capitalist authors, you'll get into the topic of victimless crimes. The idea that suppose there is a man who drives drunkenly and arrives home. Is it a crime? In the not realm, but the idea of victimless crimes, since there was no victim, there was no crime. Now we can get into this a little bit later, but I still think there should be some sort of repercussion. I think it's a social one, not a legal one. But one place on anarcho-capitalism that I'm personally very shaky is with ecology. Say I'm on Bishop and I'm turning onto 10th, which is, albeit a highly civilized place, I flick a cigarette butt out my window onto the concrete skitters. Is my victim the earth? Did I just harm the earth? Is there no victim because there was no actual person involved? Or is there no even cause for this situation because it's already highly civilized? There's already this giant scar that is a roadway. So, in both cases, I believe no matter what, there should be major social repercussions. The drunk driver, I mean, if I ever catch on that you're drunk driving, I'm going to slap you across the face. And I would hope you do the same to me. Simultaneously with littering.
I think that the drunk driving one particularly is a hard one to get into, because I think that while a lot of people say and do mean well in saying that, like, they would never let a friend drive drunk, I can count many a fucking time where I've let a friend drive after a couple beers, because I'm just like,
It's up to
I
his
don't
judgment.
think you're drunk, it's your judgment kind of deal.
When alcohol is known to impair judgment.
Yeah, and when you're in a situation in which, like, everyone in the group's drunk, who's supposed to make the positive call? Who's supposed to give the social repercussion to prevent you from doing dumb things?
Well, I would say that arguably driving drunk is a breach of contract. Insofar as that when you get a license and you agree to become a driver on the road, you agree to a certain set of rules that everybody follows, and there are punishments for not obeying those rules. And one of the rules we've all decided on as a society is you don't get to get on the road inebriated, because even if you do make it home drunk, there's not the guarantee that that happens every time, and you've elevated the risk of everybody on the road unnecessarily and unfairly, because you yourself are now
making a conscious decision.
Well, and you're an unpredictable what would you call that? Element, right, in the driving course. So, right, yeah, the idea that just because, like, I don't know. And like
There
the
isn't
idea of flicking a
inherently a
cigarette butt
victim.
out of the window, I would say that the victim is everybody who lives in the society because you, like you said, you've littered, you've junked up the place even more than it already is. And one of the things we kind of agreed on is you don't junk up the place unnecessarily. So flicking the cigarette butt out of your window is a violation, is a breaking of the social contract that we all hold. And I could see where you're coming from, where it's a social repercussion that you want for that. But I also think that, you know, at a certain point, you know, maybe a cigarette butt isn't a big deal, but when you're throwing like lawnmowers in ditches and like washing machines and stuff,
or oil into streams,
right?
like,
Yeah.
Where do you draw the threshold then?
You don't own the road. You don't own the stream. You don't have a right to just throw your trash wherever you want. This is collective property, essentially. You can't behave as you wish. There are rules you have to follow.
Okay. Fair stance. Any thoughts?
I think that victimless crimes treads like a muddy water. And
It's the water of you have no sympathy, you have no civilization.
My argument for certain punishments really stems away from whether they're victim or victimless, and more towards like the types of punishments we give to certain crimes. Like, I think fines for lesser crimes, like a fine for littering, per se. Yeah, $500 is,
It's $1,000
or $1,000
or a
littering.
year in jail. Yeah, they say there are signs everywhere in the state.
And it's like, so
$1,000 fine.
that's a
Up to.
deterrent. But let's say it affects people disproportionately. I feel like,
But I mean, you could argue for certain countries do this in Europe, where you have like your fines are proportional to your annual income. So if
I
like, you
could
get a
be
speeding
behind
ticket
that.
and you make like $1 million a year, you're gonna pay like $50,000 on that ticket. Yeah,
I
but if
could
you
get
make like
behind that.
right, and
Or
I
I
think,
would get behind community service.
and I think that would be a better argument as far as like equal punishment because it's equal.
Because it's
impact.
equal time, equal
Right.
impact. That's my... And for, like, lesser deals, like a lot like the judge video you sent me the other day. What was that, Alabama?
I'm not sure where
I
it
don't
was.
remember
Georgia,
what
maybe.
state. Yeah,
Somewhere
one of
in the
those
South,
southern
but-
states. The judge came up with, like, kind of wild punishments, like
Alternatives.
alternative measures. So he'd give you an option. It'd be like a lady, for example, she left her dog in like a hoarder house for like 7 days.
Oh.
Just like, you know, true animal abuse. And so the cop was like, this is your option. You can serve 90 days in jail, or you can go to the dump tomorrow. They're going to find the stinkiest, grossest spot in there, and you have to sit there for 8 hours and think about what you did for that dog. And it's like essentially putting you in the same position.
Yeah.
And his recidivism...
Forcing the sympathy,
Yeah.
not
And-
just empathy.
Exactly. And his recidivism rates were like 10% versus the national average of what? It's like
75.
74, 75.
Huh.
And it's
Interesting.
because they had another dude that was caught enlisting a prostitute, and instead of jail time, he chose public humiliation by wearing a chicken costume around town, being followed with a chicken costume with a sign on it. And when asked if he would ever do it again, he's like, no, this is like the worst thing I've ever done. And it's just like, you know, those alternative punishments, while some people may think they're like harsh to an extent, it's also just like jail time's not always
Well,
That's not a solve all.
You
Yeah.
can't make an argument against that. They're not. I don't know. You can't really make an argument against them because all the people who underwent them chose them.
Yeah.
Right. They had
Yeah.
an option. They could have
They-
went to jail. They
or-
were going
And
to
that's
get
the
punished.
difference.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
you're going to suffer the consequences.
And I was actually
You
going to
get
bring that up
choose.
earlier when you mentioned fines or community service.
But see, the problem is that if fines aren't progressive,
levels?
Yeah,
Yes.
if fines aren't progressive, then if I'm rich, I'll always take
Yeah,
fines
it's
because
whatever.
fines will always affect me less. Than
Right. It's
community
like
service.
the meme of the judge is like, you're growing weed in your basement, like 5 years in jail or something. And it's like, oh, you polluted this stream, and to save yourself like $10 million, here's a $50,000 fine. It's like, that's just cost of doing business to that guy. Like you're
Yeah.
not solving anything.
But, yeah, exactly. And And I think corporatism in general is a pretty big problem.
Crony
in America
capitalism
now.
is awful.
Well, I would argue that, depending on what you call capitalism, right? But it's not free market capitalism, I guess. Yeah, it's crony capitalism.
No, it's like corporatism.
Yeah, that's what I call it. It's corporatism.
Yeah.
It's-
There's free enterprise capitalism, and it can be very, very quickly corrupted into crony capitalism.
Which is what we've seen happen in America.
To a
when the rich
unfortunate
people get in
extent.
bed with the government, they all
Uh-huh.
team up, and then the rest of us are just kind
And
of.
you start making
bent over
legislature
and
that
taking it.
protects your way of doing things,
Yeah, when I
restricts
can
other
pay
people.
that make the rules and restrictions against me, then you are
Nah.
gonna have a fundamental flaw in
Well,
the system.
and even when there's just systems set up where you can still bribe people. Like if you think every congressperson isn't being bribed right now, you're a fucking idiot. in my
Lobbying is a
opinion.
fully
Sorry, but-
accepted practice.
Right, it's
Which
expected. I
don't
had a
agree.
professor at the
Boggles
university
me.
who said lobbying was important because he's like, that's how people get their message to these people. I'm like, okay, maybe, but like,
Maybe a grassroots lobby.
yeah,
but
I don't.
how
think,
many lobbies are grassroots lobbies? Get out
No
of here with
effective
that.
ones.
They're most super PAC
Right,
lobbies.
right. That's the thing. None that are effective. There's people trying to point to examples that exist. Oh well, there's this one. All right, what
That's
legislation
anecdotal.
had they passed? Right.
That's
yeah,
all
exactly.
anecdotal.
Yeah. Anecdotal rules a lot of things nowadays.
Yes. Public opinion, albeit we are making anecdotal arguments to support that claim.
That's true.
But
Yeah, I
Fact check
find
me,
that
nerds. I don't care.
I find that a lot of people point to a lot of opinion pieces for their facts on things, though. Sometimes,
yes,
and
I've
I'm just
noticed
like,
that as well.
you realize that up in the top left-hand corner it says opinion. Like it's a noted opinion piece. Like you don't get to just pull from that like it's a factual argument.
Yeah.
It says here that this guy thinks this. All right, well that guy's a fucking moron. So I don't
Wikipedia is
necessarily
actively a
agree
better
with that
source
guy.
than that.
yeah, right.
I need a source that doesn't at least openly tell me it's his opinion. Like, at least give me a fact or statistic that backs up that opinion. And then I'm like way more on board.
Yeah,
with the
let's talk.
argument.
Actually, just this summer, I've started looking at Gallup surveys, and that company conducts some very, very strong research. And of course,
Gallup has always
the-
been highly rated.
yes.
From what I've heard.
Of course, you always hear a word, and then you'll hear or a brand new word to your vocabulary, and then you'll hear it again within 24 hours. That's a superstition. And this summer was first interaction with Gallup anything, and like my last 2 or 3 books that I've read have mentioned Gallup like fairly extensively. Like multiple chapters will be like, oh, Gallup did this project, or this finding from Gallup, or this weird thing happened. That Conscious Capitalism book I mentioned to you, that mentioned Gallup in every other chapter, which I appreciate. Like you said, it's very highly rated, very well accredited.
I want to hear from. I want to hear the
Accredited
best arguments. I want to hear
source,
the steel man things, not the straw man. I think that's a big problem too. Is everything now is a straw man argument. You look at what people are arguing. It's like they'll say like conservatives believe this, and I'm a conservative. It's like no, you're completely wrong. Like. If other conservatives believe that, I don't count them in my circle. Like they aren't what I consider to be true conservatives.
And
true
that's
Scotsmen,
the
right? But
argument
it's
for
like,
individualism.
Yeah.
right.
Oh my goodness.
Don't lump me in with a group of people. I don't think the way you're saying that I
Yes.
think. Talk
It's
to me.
like-
That's what we're trying to do with this. Is we're trying to show people that if you actually just talk to people,
Yes,
we're
the
not really
individual.
that different. We agree
No.
on probably most everything. It's just we
How
may
we
have
get
some
there.
some disagreement on how we get there, but we can agree that we have the same goals and we generally are moving in the same direction to get there.
Absolutely. Yes.
But I think there's a lot of people who don't want, not a lot, but there's a vocal minority, a very vocal minority, and you see this in like Twitter especially, that don't want to have what I guess you would call a nuanced conversation and actually sit down with people. They just want to scream at them.
And
It's like the Andrew Gallagher's and the Brendan Daly's on my page, right? They just come at me with some BS that it's like, that's not even related to what I said. What are you even talking about? Or like, I posted some meme, it was like, if some cartoon offended, if Elmer's Fudd, if removing Elmer's Fudd gun made you feel safe, you're an idiot. And some guy posted, he's like, literally no one was calling for that. I'm like, okay, well there were some people
They
who
were.
did it, yeah, and those people are idiots. just because those people are on your side generally, and you feel like I'm attacking your side, doesn't mean this is an attack against you. It's an attack against the people who felt this specific way.
It's not even an attack against that person. It's not an attack against their ideology.
No.
It's just an attack on those people who genuinely feel safer that this
Elmer Fudd doesn't have a gun and isn't
literal
teaching kids to
cartoon.
hunt. And it's like,
and that could
if
be
that's how you
be
feel,
3 people in the entire world,
and those 3 people are idiots. Yeah,
but everybody wants to. They also want to think that everything's about them, right? How does this relate to me? Well, it fucking doesn't.
Sometimes
dude.
it doesn't.
I post stupid stuff on my
always.
Facebook page all the time. If you get offended by that, unfriend or unfollow. It's that simple. Like,
I think that if you can't roll through your feed and see things that you disagree with, then
You're
like
caught
you
up.
have a really rough life ahead of you. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna disagree with people in your life, and if like it's so OCD to you that you have to comment and say something on every single post that you disagree with, or you just get offended at every single post you disagree with, it's like, how many ideas do you hear in the world that you disagree with that you are this vocal about all the time? I just think it's a lot that people just don't do much with their day. Like, they don't have a lot going on. And I feel very strong in that since I've been in a fucking leg cast nonsense. It's like all I have to do is fucking scroll through social media, and it's like I'll catch myself commenting on shit. It's like, dude, I would never comment on this, but now it's interesting
I'm bored.
just because it's like I'm fucking bored.
Right.
And I think too many goddamn people are bored. I think people need to go find some hobbies.
and what it is they have a very short attention span, right? 15, 20 seconds maybe. They're scrolling through and they're jumping from hit to hit of oxytocin. We're like, fucking got him. Fucking
Good
got
old
him. Owned him.
dopamine hit.
Fucking got
Funny,
you.
funny,
Boom, got
funny.
him.
Singer.
Yeah, and then and at the end of the day, it's like, what did you really accomplish? You just made some people like you even less than they already do, and not take you seriously. Like,
Yeah.
It's a wild world.
And I was just
the bad thing is, I think the reason this gets talked about a lot is I don't even think this happens a ton, right? I think it's a vocal minority, but
Yes.
it's people who are
and
in
that's the power
high,
of social media.
Right, it's people who are in high positions of power,
High
who
influence.
are right, who are looking at these people talking on the social media and being like, "Well, this is what people think. Like, we gotta follow it." It's like, no, it's not. No, it's
And
fucking not.
even
If
then-
they have a blue check mark by their name, it's not what the people think. If they're a
And
verified
even
user,
then, I can't really argue with that.
if they're a verified user, it's probably not the mind of the people.
Correct.
No offense to verified users, but like at that point in your like status of fame, you're just like a little removed from the everyday person. And I'm sure there are definitely verified users that are more down to earth and more in tune with the
Oh,
everyday
absolutely.
man.
And that's back to individualism.
But exactly. But I
In
think
general.
as a whole, and just like what it takes to be a verified user and get a blue check mark and be an influencer like that, you're probably not in the same position as the
we
regular
just-
everyday American.
Back to people are bored. The fact that you can make a living on being an influencer,
Is what? But on that
People
same
are
note,
bored.
it takes a lot of fucking time and effort to be a content creator, to be
I
honest.
know it does. But
I mean, the people who
I
are
don't see
making
the value
that,
personally.
the people who are
I mean, it depends on what
Right.
content you're creating. You
no,
can say that, but it's like...
what I think he's saying is he's not talking about content creators. He's talking about the fact that there are so many people that support
Consumers.
that.
Yes.
So
right,
many consumers.
Right.
Yes.
The
And
fact
I
that there
think
are so
to a
many
point-
people just looking at that shit all
I
the
actually,
time.
I just recently subscribed to a magazine. Like, whoa, we're back in the '90s. And I was leafing through it. I was like, wow, this.
Bro, chug some of this, because I don't like that IPA right now.
I'll take it.
You don't have to
I'm
finish,
almost done
but-
with mine.
Here,
you can
and I was
have
like, wow, this is oddly reminiscent of influencers. Like, there were these opinion pieces, and you could definitely see the traces of, like, when you go to look up a recipe and you get this person's life story and how their uncle had cancer, and you just want the ingredients. You could obviously see traces of that in this magazine. But I think influencers are a new breed of magazine writers.
a new
It's
content
another
creator.
sort-
Yes.
yeah, it's
And
another version
which
of media.
is just providing something laid out in a form or in a level, a readability level.
Easily digestible, whatever.
You don't have to actively consume it. You can just passively zombie and scroll.
Yeah, I'm gonna read headlines.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
So why they
and I'm gonna
there's
share
a
headlines.
whole
Think
graphic
about-
design element that goes into building social media platforms. Like when I do web and media development testing and user testing, a lot of that has to do with like the colors of the font, the size of the font, the placement of keys, the shape of keys even goes into things. Like people expect, your logins to be right next to each other in rectangle boxes at exactly 32 characters long. Like there are certain expectations that you have when you're building a website or building a magazine or really any social media in which has a set template kind of deal.
Right.
And it's like there are rules that you follow and the kind of psychology that goes into that as well.
I just took a technical communication course about the theory of visual communication. Kind of the other side of that, almost approaching it from the graphic design and psychology side of things. And it was talking about like how if you change this sharp edge to be a rounded edge, you're going to completely change how your user receives the image.
Well, it's like eBay. One time decided their background was like yellow or like tan or something, and they decided to change it to white, and they immediately did it. And everybody was like, "What the fuck? No, I don't like this." So they changed it back, and then every day they would get like one pigment closer to white, and after a year it was white, and nobody said anything. It's like whenever you see like a new Facebook style come up, you're like,
remember when the new Instagram camera came out and it was the rainbow camera and everyone was like,
God.
no, what happened to our old school Polaroid?
Yeah, now nobody cares.
Now no one's like,
You either have to slowly do it, or you just have to deal with the
do
fact
it
that
and
people are going to
deal with
bitch.
the flag for a
And then
while.
how many of those people are actually going to leave your service? Like, not that many.
Not unless you're doing something actually bad, like, unless it's
Even
new
then,
Coke.
dude.
Unless it's new Coke.
I don't think we
everyone's
want
like,
to get
no,
into
we're not
this.
drinking that.
Oh, we definitely do. If you say we don't want to, I definitely do.
As soon as I leave this workplace and my schedule is not posted on Facebook, I'm leaving Facebook. Simply, and it's been a myriad of things.
Use that myself.
But most
I
recently,
only got Facebook because of this place, and it's pulled me into a rabbit hole.
I thought you were very active on Facebook.
I am now because I got
Recently,
nothing else to do.
you gotta get the
Facebook
leak
has
crack, man.
banned
right?
the hashtag Save the Children.
Oh
Are
shit!
you shitting me?
No.
Oh
If
my
you
God.
search it, it gives you an error message saying that it's been flagged for going against community standards.
What community
then-
standard can save the children?
The community standards of we don't
That
want
we're
you to
all
expose us.
pedophiles.
That we're all
They probably
Yeah.
don't want you actively talking about hunting pedophiles, which I'd like to actively talk about.
I think it's funny, but
I think it's
That's
serious.
That's one of those things where I'm like, I mean, I don't agree with like killing people like that, but also like, I'm more of like the kind of guy where it's like, if you catch them doing it, like, I'm not gonna say anything about what you do to them after that. That's up to you.
I just think that maybe the Japanese sex robot industry is far enough advanced that we can take all the pedophiles, put them on an island, like they did with prisoners in Australia,
So,
Jeffrey
and give
Epstein's
them
island?
like an Epstein island, just like let all the pedophiles like dress up, play role play on each other. They can all do their pedo thing together.
And
separate
then
from
what happens
society.
when you have male and females and they create children? Are we going to abandon those children to be constantly molested by a
Can
society
we
of
castrate
pedophiles?
them all first? Castrate all
At
the
that
males?
point, you might as well have just done the deed.
I mean, yeah, those cost a lot more money than a 22, dude. Like, even the 223 round is like 50 cents.
The argument is strong,
Yes.
and like, as fucked as it is, I'm kind of about
So,
chlorinating that
let's-
out of the gene pool.
Man, if you prey on people, I don't have any respect on you.
Yeah.
If
And
you
I was
prey
just
on
about
the
to get
most
into that.
defenseless in our
People-
Where do
society,
you guys draw the line on forgiveness? For example, I just had one of my upsettingly close friends come out to the group and say that when he was 19 years old, he traveled to another state, had sex with a 13-year-old, and got convicted. Felony charges, did 5 years in prison. And then he continues his story and says he went to therapy. He genuinely didn't think it was wrong. She was post-pubescent. Now he realizes how wrong he was. And this is coming out to a group, a far right group on Instagram that actively believes kill pedophiles. And obviously there was a huge falling out, huge
That's
cataclysm.
a bold move.
It was mostly someone found the headline. It was like, hey man, what's up with this? And he's like, oh shit. And now he's backing it all up, trying to just put out the fire. So I genuinely believe that he wasn't being pedophilistic. He wasn't going for prepubescence. And on top of that, everything he said about his therapy is incredibly positive. Simultaneously, in the story itself, it states how he was being incredibly manipulative. And once you're a manipulative person, you are. That's part of the personality.
Right.
So where do you draw the line of forgiveness?
I catch myself being manipulative sometimes. And
I'm
like,
probably manipulative.
I'll be like,
if you don't mean to.
yeah.
I think the problem here is that whether you see the 6-year age gap in between that, or whether she's
The 13-year-old.
or not, it's the maturity gap in
Yes.
between that
That's
creates
huge.
the power dynamic that is what pedophilia thrives on. So while he can argue all this stuff, like, at the end of the fucking day, if he's 27 now, maybe he preys on 18-year-olds, but he still wants the power dynamic. Like, it's like...
So where do you draw the line for forgiveness? Because judicially, back to that, like, the civil repercussions are present. The judicial meets the social in civil. Those civil repercussions for him are met. He did his time. He got out on good behavior and due to very, very positive therapy. So judicially, civilly, he is not clear, but he has paid the
about
price.
as clear as you can.
Yes.
And I guess
What about
it also,
socially?
I guess it kind of also comes down to, did he rape the girl, or was it at least...
It was
fucking
considered
consensual?
rape, but it was consensual.
It was statutory.
Statutory,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But, like you said, that
Yeah.
power dynamic. Was it
I
actually
agree that the
consensual?
power dynamic
Was
is
it...
still fucked up.
So, this is probably not going to be a popular opinion, but as somebody who considers himself a Christian, and I don't hold any animosity towards that person. I don't hold any animosity towards anybody. I
Now,
don't
is
think,
that because you feel like they have repented, or because they did not harm you?
I
feel like it's a form.
Neither.
No?
Forgiveness, I view, is about yourself. It's about letting go of anger and hatred, because there's a quote. It's I'm gonna butcher it, but it's not the hated who suffers; it's the hater.
Okay.
Right. So if you hold
yeah.
anger in your mind towards somebody, in your heart, that affects you negatively. They don't feel the effect of it. So why should I let that person negatively impact my lifestyle? Not lifestyle, but my mental state. Right? Why should I give that guy space in my head? And I don't think what he did was right, and I do think he should be punished, but I don't think he's any better
Given
or
the
worse
caveats,
a person than anybody else.
So-
because I don't know what influenced that guy. I don't know what experiences he had as
You
a
don't know
child.
the full details, because I don't, and I'm passing it on to you.
Right, exactly. I'm hearing a third-hand story.
Fourth
right,
now.
right, and so I'm giving an account on based on the information I have. I don't know what this guy experienced in his
So
life. And
your
you see a lot of
statement is-
people who are pedophiles were victimized themselves as children, and
Yes,
that
I've seen-
leads to
yes.
that. So the question is more so, is it entirely that person's fault, or is that something they were conditioned
there's
into
no
long before they
singular
had
cause.
any hope of getting understanding it? Right, that's just who they were made into.
So
by
two
somebody
things here.
else.
One, you're stating on the premise that if you are aware of a wrongdoing upon a person, if you are within reason assured that it will not occur again, then you feel you do not need to state even an opinion on it, let alone hold any resentment. And I'm not shaming you, I'm just wanting to make sure I'm clear.
No, I get you. I don't think you are. I would say I'm a little drunk, so I'm kind of right. I don't entirely remember what you said, but what I'll say is that I wouldn't say I would trust him. Right? Trust and forgiveness are two different things.
Okay.
He's lost the trust I have with him around minors. Maybe. the way he describes it, describes it, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna treat him like he's an outcast.
Yeah.
But
Ostracized, but won't ask him to nanny the kids.
right.
Fair.
He may not be a guy I treat poorly, but I'm gonna keep a close eye on him when he's around kids. He's proven himself to be untrustworthy.
That's
in that
reasonable.
So, should we ban you from society? No. Should we murder you? Probably not. Should we not let you around kids and keep a close eye on you if it's not possible? Definitely.
Okay.
So
Fair enough. So my second point is going to kind of pull us back out of this. Okay. You stated that there's not normally a singular cause, and I cannot agree more with that. Well, you were saying that there's normally underlying
I was saying
effects.
I don't know why he did.
Correct. That's fair.
And I don't know what influenced him to think that was okay.
Getting into that multiple influences, though, and what that book was stating was there are multiple types of influence, and one is multiple types of intelligence. You have your IQ, your analytical intelligence,
emotional.
and then your emotional intelligence. And then this book constantly harped on a systems intelligence. The ability to understand the influences of certain components on an entire system. The ability to understand the percentage of alcohol compared with my latent body fat, compared with my current food and stomach, and how that's going to affect my total inebriation level. And you can expand or contract systems to incredibly large and incredibly small. And I think that's fascinating to get into, that there's always more than one cause for things, or that cause is actually an influence that has multiple causes on that.
Yeah.
A cause is essentially like the symptom or the disease, and then has multiple symptoms.
Kind of. Things such as a system can be a vehicle. So a vehicle has multiple components. It has passenger capacity, seating. It has propulsion, engine. It has steering, maneuverability. It has storage. It has electrical systems to maintain the passenger system. Albeit we're describing two smaller systems within the entire system of the car, but you have the electrical, which interfaces with the ventilation, which interfaces with the passenger, which interfaces through the controls all the way back to the ventilation. It's just systems intelligence is so overwhelming, and it's super hard to get into and actually define. Like, it's all very intuitive for most people.
Right.
To actively and objectively state it all out in a list is wild.
Yeah.
Drinks.
That's what it's about.
So. Oh.
So, this is over a year old now. Do you think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself?
No. God, no.
You know what's? I was talking about this with my parents yesterday. I think that's maybe one of the only things that Americans agree on right now.
Yeah,
Pretty
doesn't matter
much-
what side you're on.
pretty much everybody's like,
yeah, no way.
Do you think all of America agrees with it, or do you think it's the vocal minority? And what evidence do you have to either side?
I've yet to ask someone.
I think it's the majority, just because, like, just the accounts you hear, right? Like, I heard Tim Pool talked about this story. He heard some, like, fourth order account, right? But it was some guy got like an Uber. And the first thing the Uber driver said to him was like, "Dude, that guy did not kill himself."
Could you imagine just blast it out of your mind, out
Like
partying,
drunkenly crawl into the back of some dude's
it's
fucking
just-
and you just see
Taurus.
his eyes flick up into the rear view. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
And you're just
No,
thinking,
he turned around and was like, "Dude, that guy did not kill himself."
and at that moment, your drunk mind's like, is this
What?
real life?
The evidence, I mean, it's anecdotal, right? I'm one man who's done absolutely no research, but
That's fair.
it is everywhere.
As long as you state it's anecdotal.
Right, and it's the fact that they're moving his girlfriend around in prisons. We're moving her to avoid assassins. Yeah, so the other guy was assassinated. Yeah. Why do you think she's gonna be assassinated? Oh, because the other dude was.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And
everybody had testimony on record before she went on
I am
trial
curious. Why do they have her
just for
in
that.
jail right now?
they caught her.
Because they caught her.
She's a
Sex
She was
trafficking.
okay. She's involved as well.
Oh yeah.
She was
Oh.
his partner. Like
Oh.
she groomed females.
And to make it worse, she also
children
ran a
prostitutes.
charity against sex trafficking
Of course.
because they all do.
Yeah.
Look at us, we're against it, really. Well, I mean,
The
not really,
best
but,
wolf hides in sheep's clothing among the sheep.
That's true. They would never expect me. I'm the biggest donator and the biggest player in the anti-game.
And
I'm playing both sides, so I always come out.
I didn't come to this
Fucking
question because
sunny.
of the question of his girlfriend. Which, is that Maxwell?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Maxwell.
Then I'm on
She's
board.
lean.
I just didn't realize that they were dating.
I
But,
I don't know if they were dating, but they were close enough.
oh,
that they're-
on Instagram, I saw someone sharing a account that was selling masks. And it was selling kids and teens sized masks. It was selling kids and teens. And all of the models for the masks were the actual products being sold. And we're up in the tens of thousands of dollars for masks. It's the Wayfair thing again just a week ago.
Bro, I met a girl that told me the Wayfair thing was a super stretch.
You also
And-
met a chick who told you were ignorant because you thought vaccines could cause medical complications. So
After vaccines caused me medical complications.
that bitch
Yeah,
is
dude,
fucking
I was
stupid.
She was like, I think you're ignorant. I was like, why? I was
Did you read the comment I posted against her?
Yeah.
I was like, if somebody tells you they're a living example of why vaccines are dangerous and they don't think they should be mandatory, and you call them ignorant, your head is so far up your own ass that the lump in your throat is your fucking nose.
It's like, dude, how can you tell me that I'm being ignorant? That's straight from my pediatrician and doctor's mouth. Like, they were like, hey, you shouldn't get vaccinated anymore. You can't.
She's dating a nurse. She knows that.
Like,
Oh,
that
God.
fucks you up. And I was like, all right, noted. Won't do that.
Her
Thanks.
boyfriend is supposed to be one of the guys who's on our podcast, so
Ooh.
yeah,
Exciting.
that'll be interesting.
Oh, then.
But no, I was considering why am I just sharing this account, trying to raise awareness for it, when I can call an anti-trafficking hotline? And then I beget the question in my head, what's the hotline even going to do? What if the hotline is owned by them?
Yeah.
And they're just, we can't be that out in the open about it. We got to dial it back, guys.
Yeah.
And that's all that occurs for me calling the hotline.
Yeah, people are starting to catch on. Better be a little more careful.
Yeah. And I have this honestly still have this genuine belief that if I had called the hotline, the account would have closed down. It would have found another avenue to sell by, and you wouldn't be able to show the layperson as effectively how rampant trafficking is.
Yeah. I mean,
When
honestly,
fucking
this comes.
22,000 kids are going missing every year,
Mal.
though, it's a
Can I
pretty
get
I'm pretty sure it's a lot
4
more than
or
that.
3 of those
That was
glasses?
it's like 913
The
a
glasses
day.
that you
Pretty
gave
sure.
in the
yeah.
I'm
sample.
pretty sure it's like 618,000 a year. It's a number that when I saw
Six.
that I bought. I was like, what?
Here, I
Say
have
again?
Googled the magic.
The number of kids that are abducted every year, it's like 618,000.
So what's your guys' take on, I want to say the number was 1,667, because I'm minorly autistic. I want to say it was 1,667 times more likely to be trafficked in the United States than to be killed by coronavirus for ages 5 to 12, I think it was. And the masks are making it so much easier to not identify kids.
Yeah, because now I can cover half their face. That's applied.
It's if I'm
And
on
everyone wants me to.
and if it's not just a random dude on a plane with this 10-year-old girl who's got a mask on. Now it's a loving and caring father.
Yeah.
I remember it wasn't really a major deal, but I was at the airport and I was standing off by just some benches. I think it was Lambert Airport.
Kids get abducted at a rate of 11.4 for every 1,000. 11 1.5 kids for every 1,000 kids are abducted in the U.S. every year.
Not just
That's-
1 in 1,000. 10 or
Over
more
10 in
in 1,000. Wow.
Say that statistic again.
11.4.
Of every 1,000 kids
1,000
are
kids.
abducted.
So that's 1,100 per 100,000.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's
Because that's what a lot of
unfortunate.
statistics are measured in, is per 100,000.
Yes.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So there's been 54 per 100,000
What's
deaths
this?
from COVID in America.
I brought gifts.
Your chances of being abducted are
Pretty fucking high, honestly.
Yeah,
That's
about-
terrifying.
20 times that.
Parents, keep your kids close.
Well, you know, people are so desperate to send their kids back to school right now, and it's like, why would you? You had the perfect excuse to not send your kid to a school. Don't do it. Is this your beer, Aaron?
I don't know what's about
Yes.
to happen. Oh,
Well,
shit.
It was share a beer, and I brought, not beer, I brought mead.
Oh, fuck.
Dude.
I haven't had mead in so long.
I had mead yesterday. This is
What?
great. I bought my sister a bottle
Is
like
it honey mead?
2 years ago.
All mead is made from honey,
I thought so, but
Honeyed wine, right?
yeah, I thought so.
basically. I've got another one.
I had Viking's blood. I bought my sister. That stuff's good.
So, did you know that people who, or rather, societies that were slightly inland or in bays or just along the coast were called Viks? Vik, V-I-K. People who lived in them were called Vikings. And that's where it comes from. So, actually, before we serve this, I want us all to try this.
Salud.
Salute.
Stiff. It's good though.
But smooth.
Yeah, really
I like
sweet.
it. That's a good portion.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you.
So that is available at Liquor Cabinet. I want to say it's like $40 a bottle. Very, very much worthwhile. This, I would say, is my favorite drink I have ever had. Actually, I'm going to pour a bit more. It is. This is one of my most treasured possessions because this is my second of 4 cans. It's Old Wayfarer's Oaked Amber Mead. Show the camera.
Where'd you get that?
Do we want to show
So,
the people?
I got this from Grunfeld Meadery. Vermont.
Grunfeld Meadery?
Yes.
I want to go to a meadery.
Honestly, same.
Based on an ancient Germanic warrior's drink, Old Wayfarer is the world's first amber craft mead. Brewed with a custom blend of amber honeys, German brewer's yeast, and dark natural sugars. Old Wayfarer is then aged on toasted oak, creating complex notes of bourbon, molasses, and spice.
Alright.
And if that doesn't make your tongue water, just taste it. Salute.
Salud. Yeah. That was really smooth. Really good.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really good.
I should have told you guys not to rock it.
Yeah, I
God,
Yeah,
I
you
love
should
that.
have. I thought I was gonna have to rock it like the last one, but I didn't.
Did you think that last one was really stiff?
I didn't think it was really stiff. It was like noticeably stiff. I think if it was on ice, like if I did meat on the rocks,
Mm-hmm.
mead neat though, mead neat, yeah, has a little umph to it.
Yes, it does. Oh,
Yeah, that's fucking good.
I should hide this because
You're not
we run a place of
technically,
business. I will be sharing more
This
later.
man has set the bar high for all future guests.
Yeah. Sorry guys. You don't bring me something bomb to eat or something delicious to drink.
Oh.
You're not gonna get put on the
You're not going to be that
list.
stack.
You get one episode and one episode only.
Fair warning, take it slow on the beers after that because I'll look at the ABVs.
Because she'll slap.
Dude, I've already decided I'm not driving home, so.
Look at you making this decidedly correct decision.
I
The
also
second-
don't want to go to jail.
The second was 6.8%. And actually never showed this. was 19%.
19% on the first mead.
Yeah.
The rib, what's it called? Ribe.
The Vikings blood comes in almost identical container.
I think it's the same
Brand.
I think so, yeah, too.
Dansk.
I don't know. I bought it.
I don't
a
speak
year
it.
plus ago. Bought it for
I'm
my sister.
learning to speak it. I'm still very rough because I'm only reading. I actually haven't heard any pronunciations.
Oof.
Actually, that's a fun fact about me. If you ever hear me like mispronounce a very obvious word, it's because I grew up reading more than socializing.
Yeah, that's what I read. That is, and people mispronounce words is because they learned it from reading, not from hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few words that I do that with.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's why.
I never realized it. It was maybe when I moved here, I was close enough with my high school friends that they could like actively just make fun of me. It was like actual character development. And my good friend Elena, cheers to you.
Salud, Elena.
All the time, I would say a word that like she had never heard of, and like I'm always expanding her vocabulary. But then she'd go to look it up, I would have pronounced it wrong. And it's always I had read it and never heard it.
Right.
It's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, I was that way with anecdotal evidence. I pronounced it antecedent,
I can see that.
and I was.
And
like,
do you
I
have a
know
math
that's
background?
right. Yeah, a little bit.
Yep. What is an antecedent? That's a term.
I don't even know.
That's a math term.
Yeah, it is a math term. I don't remember what it is. For 3 kids that went to Rollo Engineering School.
Man, every single
it's
time.
probably like a really simple math term too. It's like, man, I haven't used that one in a while.
Maybe it's the first term in a additive operation. Antecedent, maybe? I don't know. But every time I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, specifically Dungeon Mastering, because it's not with close friends necessarily, it's people I know through rock climbing, and it'll be like, nice, you just did 12 damage. Shit, I don't have my calculator open. I'm like, aren't you going to school for engineering? I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
But it is commonly accepted that the second you learn calculus, basic math is out the window.
Yeah.
Done, gone, no hope.
Once I get into theoretical math with actual theory behind it, no. I can't do that. My mind's already past that.
One of my favorite class
Theories? Things have theories? What?
One of my favorite class sessions, it was in my pre-calculus course. So think like trigonometry here. And the instructor was like, well, you guys are 2 weeks, 6 class sessions ahead of the other class, so we need to burn some time. Can you all agree with me that 1 + 1 = 2? Like, yeah. And this room, all 4 walls were chalkboards. And he was back here, where normally he teaches up here, and he wrote 1 + 1 = 2. Oh my god. We went all the way across the room, proved from 1 + 1 = 2, all the way up to sine, cosine, and tangent, and proved everything based on the previous knowledge. We proved up to trigonometry level knowledge based on the acceptance that 1 + 1 = 2.
Damn.
And then another class session, we got into the argument
Which
of,
is technically a theory to begin with.
Yes,
It's like
it is.
Right,
That's
because
an acceptance.
For sure proven.
Right now, people argue that 2 + 2 does not equal 4. They'll argue that if you, they're kind of stupid because they argue if you change what 2 means and what plus means and what equals means and what 4 means, 2 + 2 will actually equal 5.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then again, you're changing the semantics of
Right.
everything.
Right. So 2
Yeah.
+ 2 doesn't actually equal 4. But in their mind, they're like, ha, 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4.
And then you're getting
when I
into
change what
grammatics.
everything means, and it's like, right. So and that's kind of what I was
I
talking
could
about.
also say cars don't drive when I change what a car is.
And what a driving
Yeah,
is.
what driving is.
Another
Cars
class
don't drive,
session.
Fair. So you're wrong.
We debated. He just opened the floor and said, we're going to have a debate. I'm going to pose both sides. I want you all to take sides. Are numbers cardinal numbers, meaning they're on a timeline, or are they magnitudes? Think like a wavelength. They're an inflection of a certain multiplication. Or are they additive based on the previous? So is 3 2 plus 1, or is 3 1 times 3?
Interesting.
Does
Simultaneously,
it
and to
matter?
restate it, yes, if you're very bored.
If
yes.
you're really bored. And,
Simultaneously is 27, 26 plus 1, or is it 27 times 1?
or is it 9 times 3?
Yes.
You can break that further down. Is it 9 times 3, or is it 8 plus 1 times 3 times 1? Awful. It hurt a lot to
I
really
like it.
actually get into a
I
formal
want it.
debate.
I don't want it.
One of my favorite instructors. He was very, very blunt, very harsh. It was a case of if you fell behind, sucks. I'm not slowing down class.
Damn.
Though I have on good account that if you went to his office and made the effort, he would catch you back up to class.
Which I respect. I mean, that's what office hours are for, right? How many people actually go to office
If people
hours?
do them.
That was
Yeah, one of my
that was the
favorite
caveat.
things-
If you give the
yeah.
effort.
One of my favorite things about going all online this year is a lot of my teachers sent out surveys and how we would like the classes
I
set
haven't
up
had
and
any
arranged.
communication from my professors.
Okay, well, your professor sucked. Shout out IST department at Missouri S&T. Even though we're like 6 professors short and I can't take half the classes I need this fall, you're still not that bad for Rala.
I think this is your beer, right?
Wait, what were
I've got
we
one
saying?
right here.
Well, another beer showed up, so
What were we saying though?
talking
Yeah,
about
communication. So they were talking about how you wanted the class arranged, and one of the questions was like, we can have it where we have live courses and you can ask questions, or we can have pre-recorded lectures and then one time a week we meet for questions. And then another option so it was like pick that, and then one option was like, do you want set office hours or do you want office hours by appointment? But then they threw a third caveat in there. It's like, if you don't use office hours, choose this. Just so it doesn't skew the fucking results for all the people that actually give a shit.
I
that's
appreciate
good.
that so much.
It was
Right.
just so funny. You're just like reading through, and it's all technical language. You know, it's just like really nice format, and then it's like
It's
if you
the
don't
syllabus
use,
language.
Yeah, exactly. And then that option's just like, if you don't use office hours, choose this.
Is that like verbatim what it
verbatim?
said?
I mean, that's good then, because I don't use office hours, so.
I do. It depends on the course.
Yeah.
Some courses I just get. Other courses like physics, what the fuck is physics?
And see, I can feel that, but in my opinion, that's what class time asking professor questions is for me, because
And go ahead.
most of my learning is done on my own. So when I do come in to the professor, I just need like clearance on a couple things, which I know is not necessarily everyone's learning style though.
Yep. That's fair. I'm a very intuitive learner. Like, I have to be around the thing operating, and
Yeah.
then I can understand, oh, that's
I'm
a
lot
shaper.
more
It
hands-on,
pushes, it
see
doesn't
it,
pull. Yeah.
Doing its thing and figure out from visual. A lot more visual and hands-on for sure.
Hands-on
Which makes
learner, yeah.
fucking classroom learning a pain in the fucking head.
One thing I will never understand is calculus labs.
Yeah, those ate away at my soul.
So, I think it's interesting the dynamic that we just underwent. We went from talking about fairly high level, like societal overarching, to like actual societal overarching, to our just base complaints in school.
I mean,
So,
welcome to
people like
drinking
to
beers
bitch,
with
man.
your friends,
Yeah.
Where do you draw the middle ground? Where do you draw, like, how active in society are you? In that, there is a very fair statement that you should not delve fully into politics because it can be very bad for your mental health. At the same time,
very bad.
how much do you feel? How much effect do you change?
I think, like anything else, it's progressive. If you're able to
It's
do
on a
it,
spectrum.
you should be able. You should. And if you're unable, then you shouldn't. Kind of like paying. If you're able to pay fucking a bunch of fucking money in taxes and it not really affect you in the same way as paying a bunch of money as a low-income person, then it's kind of like on you to do that in a societal, like, positive sense. Progression in a certain way. Like,
I don't necessarily.
I
agree
don't
with
think
that.
flat taxing is the way. See, I used to always be heavy on flat taxing, but I believe in progressive taxing. I just don't believe in the current tax code we have.
let
with
me
the type of
rephrase.
loopholes we have. My
A
problem
big-
with my problem
Okay.
with progressive taxing is it really fucks the people that make money from a good hourly job. Your engineers, your doctors, your lawyers, people like that, and it doesn't actually cover the problem that you want to address because people that make a shitload of money, like your true multimillionaires and billionaires, are making money off capital gains. And I think that there should be a way or a time in which the amount that you can make off capital gains is minimized after your principal is a certain amount.
So you're talking
Okay.
about like
Fair.
the increase in value of assets as far as like capital gains, right?
Yeah.
So there's a push right now. It comes from like Bernie Sanders camp kind of area for a one-time wealth tax on
I
people
don't agree
like
with that either,
Bezos and Musk and other people like that who have seen the value
I don't
of their
agree with
assets
wealth taxes,
drastically
though.
increase because people, they shut down small businesses. Everybody started shopping on Amazon. They started shopping even more than they did.
Here's my thing with it
And
is
so, like, these people
they're not
have seen-
stuffing that money
I
under their
think
mattress.
that we should also
Right.
have value-added
Well,
taxes on
and-
corporations.
And
though.
that's the thing is that people don't realize that Jeff. You know what Jeff Bezos' salary is? It's like $80,000
Yeah,
a year.
it's several
It's not even
$100K.
that much. Most of his wealth is held in Amazon stock. That's why he's worth $157
And if he was
billion dollars,
selling it
'cause
off
these
like that,
motherfuckers
it
keep-
would drop in value.
Right, and it would destroy Amazon because
Yeah.
it's like, why is the founder bailing? Why is all this stock being dumped into the market right now?
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with this company? Oh,
We
the
should all
government's
pull
trying
out.
to steal half of it. Yeah, that makes sense.
See, I don't necessarily agree with the wealth tax. I think a value-added tax on corporations is a good incentive. I think that
good incentive for. Okay, can you explain to me what you mean by value-added tax and what the incentive you think it is? Just to educate
yes,
me,
clarify.
right?
Clarify.
Yeah.
So, value-added tax in this sense, I would do it more on digital media companies in which you get charged a tax based on fucking what you bring. So it's like yeah, these companies make money off data mining and stuff, but don't pay any taxes off that. So if you tax them off the value that they're getting from the people, and then are able to shift
So
that
how do they make money off of data mining?
advertisements, yeah.
The basic
But,
example.
but don't they sell advertisements? And aren't they taxed on that? So
No,
isn't
you're
that,
not taxed on the advertisement
Well,
fee.
then
Not,
then they
not
should be
fully.
taxed on that. Yeah, that's. I wouldn't view that
Agreed.
as a value-added tax. I just view that as a transaction. That's a sales tax. You sold advertisements. There's a 10% tax on that. In our
Fair, and
county.
I'm sure there's like a minor tax, but it's not heavy in any way. And I don't think a progressive value-added tax is a problematic tax. Everywhere else in the world kind of uses it. So
Well, I don't really
effectively.
base what's moral on what the rest of the world
it's
does.
fair.
The rest of the world doesn't allow
Most of
free
the world
speech.
was.
I don't agree with large corporations. Like, I think companies like Walmart are bad for everyone, and I would break them up. I think Walmart's about as
But
close
are
to
they?
a grocery monopoly as it can get. You can say that it's positive in the sense that you get
We have
low
3
value
grocery stores
items.
in this town alone.
I mean, I'm just saying, you can say that it's low value and everyone wins because you get cheap products, but ultimately it makes product quality cheaper because Walmart can demand that they're going to sell a
But they
product
don't.
for they
Right.
do.
No, you read conscious capitalism, please.
Uh,
They have
I'm on his
increased their suppliers.
side.
I have
So-
watched, I have read on multiple, you can say that anecdotally, and I can say this anecdotally, is there are multiple products, including like a Weber grill, that uses way less quality material now than it did 20 years ago because they have to stay in a certain price range because
Okay.
Walmart requires that. And they do that with a lot of products, and they sell on a 1 to 3% margin in which no small business could ever compete with. So it creates a barrier to entry to be a grocery store, and it's like, sure, it helps somewhat, but it also monopolizes an industry, or at least oligarchies an industry. If you want to say there's
That's fair.
3 fucking supermarkets, then sure, but you're still talking about
And
3
let me
supermarkets
state,
in a mall.
I
That's like
genuinely
saying
dislike
that-
Walmart.
that's three.
Carriers
That's
for your
3
cell
here, but
phones,
they're
and it's still
they're
monopoly.
regional. They're regional supermarkets. Like, have you ever heard of Wood's Supermarket?
Yeah, and there's Dixie and shit like.
Right. Monopoly is defined as like a certain percentage of market share that you own. I don't think.
I'd
I
imagine
don't think-
Walmart owns over 50% of market share in grocery.
I wouldn't agree with that actually.
Look it up.
I mean, you could, but I think there are too many specialty grocery stores, especially with like Whole Foods, dude. You're not gonna beat Whole Foods on market share for 50% for Walmart, combined with all the other.
That's probably fair.
All the other
Depending
small
on
ones.
Amusingly, the book I keep mentioning was written by one of the founders of Whole Foods.
Really, that's interesting. The Conscious Capitalism book.
Yeah, uh-huh.
I have to read that.
It's fantastic. I recommend it to everyone. Conscious Capitalism by Bill George et al. It's like 4 authors. So, it discusses everything from how Whole Foods was founded.
Yeah, Walmart sells too many things to have a set.
Right, and you could argue that they're monopolistic on as far as super centers, but that's kind of a thing they created, right? No, they're not monopolistic because they've driven everybody out. They're monopolistic because they're the only ones doing it right now. You have like Target, kind of. But Target isn't as big in grocery as Walmart is. I mean, you have different. I don't think Walmart is as monopolistic as you think, and I don't think that the fact that that Weber Grill was willing to compromise on the quality of their product to sell in Walmart is indicative of the negatives of Walmart. I think that's an indicative of the negatives of the runners of Weber Grill who are willing to compromise on the quality of their product to get more money.
I mean, actually, with grilling
That's
specifically.
a strong argument. That's probably the best argument I've heard against it, for sure.
It's not Walmart's fault that Weber Grill capitulated their demands. It's Weber Grill's fault because they're pussies. And they wanted money more than they wanted a quality product.
That's fair.
It's my general, not stance, but practice that I'll buy cheap furniture from Walmart just to have the functionality, and then I'll slowly upgrade my holdings. Because the coffee table in my apartment right now is incredibly cheap. It's rickety.
Either, though, yeah.
No, but it holds my books. It holds my drinks and it holds my books.
Good enough.
But it's not what I'm going to impress someone with. It's not what I want in my dream home. It's the stepping stone. It's not meant to be the most expensive.
It's meant to get you there.
And
you don't know.
Walmart has also done some fantastic things for specifically Waste Management, the company, in helping them actually have a steady supply of waste, while at the same time communicating with Waste Management. Hey, we as Walmart commit to having 0 waste. I forget what their date is, but Walmart wants 0 waste. They want to reincorporate everything back into their supply chain. But they actively work that out with Waste Management, like, hey, expect it by this date so you can bring up your other incomes of product in these places, and we don't just sweep the rug out from under you. And simultaneously, Waste Management has gone from being paid to haul away waste to paying companies for their waste, because Waste Management makes so much money off of the energy they produce from the waste.
And if you don't have a half chub on that, at least, you're not a true libertarian.
No one's a true libertarian.
No.
Yeah.
Did you see the post I made on Facebook?
Which one?
It is the one where it's like, the free market will solve all problems, and it's this kid who does a scientific thing for his class project. He's like, how much sawdust can you put in a Rice Krispies before people notice it? And I'm like, I didn't say this exactly, but I think the biggest problem with libertarians is they seem to think that they're more virtuous than they actually are. Yeah, but I'll behave properly. Will you? You really haven't, based on what I've seen. But 2, they think that everybody
else is also
as virtuous as they think they are.
Man.
And then it's like, yeah, dude.
I wish a prerequisite to this show had been we all have read or listened to Conscious Capitalism. Because it discusses a lot about the virtue of capitalism.
Right.
The idea of you don't just take care of yourself, you take care of all of your stakeholders, whether that's your investors, your suppliers, your
Ben Shapiro
customers.
calls it forced altruism. Your
Forced altruism.
altruism.
Altruism. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you said altruism, like sacrifice. I'm like,
No. I'm kind of. But it's the idea that in order to benefit yourself, you have to provide people with something that they want.
You do.
And
Absolutely.
so
And
to
that's the neat thing about
progress,
conscious
you have
capitalism.
to work with others.
Yeah,
Bill
everyone
George-
wants to shit on capitalism, but it's like capitalism is the reason you have everything cool that you like and you
Right.
want.
We're not in favor of what you would call corny
Cronyism, yes.
capitalism
Crony
or
Uh-huh.
corny capitalism.
And what's
It is
actually
corny.
really neat,
Yeah.
what's really neat is the narrator for the book, specifically Bill George, one of the two founders of Whole Food Market, was your bog standard stereotypical hippie.
Yeah.
He lived in communes. He hated capitalism. He wanted to eat the rich. And he wanted to go into business and try to provide a good, healthy food alternative. And through that avenue, found conscious
It's
capitalism.
Like, conscious capitalism is
Right.
a thing.
Well, it's
Yes.
like the saying: if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative in your 30s, you have no brain. It's like
I've not heard that.
You haven't heard that? That's a
Once you
That's
start
a pretty,
making money,
that's
and
a
get
pretty
taxed, you
popular one among
understand.
conservatives because they're like,
Uh.
if you don't grow up and kind of accept how the world works, you're kind of stupid.
How long do you guys run this for?
As long as we want, we're at
Yeah.
about an hour and 6 right now.
And
So.
like they range from fucking 45 to an hour and a half. It's really just when the conversation lulls and we're like, fuck it,
Here we
we've had
are.
enough beers. And
Yeah, or when they
we're
kick us
good.
out of here. Which,
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're getting kind of close. But
Ow.
Yeah, probably.
They're
There's
close
one-
around
as long
us.
as we're not
I am
the
gonna use
last
the
two.
bathroom real quick.
I find out that?
So you
That's a
work
lot.
here then with Zach? Is
Yeah.
that how you guys met?
Yes.
What would you say like your political leanings are?
Actually, normally
How would you describe yourself? I would say.
normally very bottom right. Like, get down there.
What do you mean by bottom?
If you look at a normal political, or I shouldn't even give that assumption. If you have a 10 by 10 grid, a
You have
Cartesian
Y-axis
coordinate,
and
yes. If you have left and right, representing the stereotypical left and right, liberal versus conservative.
Okay.
And then you have your north and south, or your up and down, representing authoritarian versus libertarianism. And you put it all at 10 points, or the bounds at 10 points, so you can go from 0 to 10, 0 to negative 10 on the X, 10 and negative 10 on the Y.
Right.
I
You're 10,
tend-
negative 10.
I tend to be that 10, negative 10.
So you're
Though
kind
sometimes
of an anarchist.
I'm absolutely an anarchist.
That's fair.
Sometimes, though, I swing all the way up to that National Socialist area. In just like my view on there should be the social repercussions for things. But I inherently.
You don't think the state should use force?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's neat how I got to where I'm at. And I actually started my political journey spiritually. I was raised very heavily Missouri Synod Lutheran Christian, and our senior year we were taking like a capstone course for being Lutherans, and we were going to get some certificate, and predetermination came up.
The Calvinist argument.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And Missouri Synod Lutherans
Hold on.
believe in predetermination.
What is predetermination?
Okay, so
The idea that no matter what you do, your fate is determined.
Yep. God has already decided whether you're going to hell or heaven, and nothing you do matters. You are going there no matter what. So you may as well live how you want because.
So hedonist
Yep.
or whatever.
And since we're Calvins, we have been predetermined to go to heaven. Interesting how that works, right?
so we can be hedonistic as fuck and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
But the argument for predetermination is someone who would go to heaven wouldn't take the opportunity to be hedonistic.
Yes.
They would be virtuous enough to avoid that opportunity. Or at the very, very least, if they took that opportunity, they would come back around, repent, and move forward away from that.
It's almost an evolutionary argument that you don't have any free will, that you're just an
Yes,
animal.
and that's the hot topic for me.
Yeah.
I have from day one been a huge proponent for free will.
I have
And
it tattooed on me, so.
I'm glad. I didn't know that. I appreciate that a lot. And spiritually, I fell hard away from the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church because of that view. I have qualms with organized religion beyond that, which are unrelated. And then politically, I started getting involved, and the free will keeps coming up. and free will just keeps pushing me further and further bottom right.
Right.
The idea of democracy,
make
I
a
don't
good
believe
choice.
in. Yes.
Make a good choice.
I think it's
the
bullshit that
individual
you can sign
responsibility.
your responsibility over to someone else with democracy. I think the majority rule is tyranny by the majority.
Right. Yeah.
I don't believe in
democracy
you
is
hear
the
a
worst
lot of
form of-
people on the
worst
left
form of
argue
government.
that too. That they're like, how can we
the
have
left or the left bottom.
both? But you have a lot of people on both sides that argues, how can the country be ruled by 51%? And it's like, yeah, that's all the majority takes. So maybe we either need to reevaluate what the majority looks like.
It's
that
an
we
attack on
need.
our democracy. Fuck your democracy.
Yeah, it's like maybe we need to reevaluate what a majority looks like. Maybe instead of just a fucking basic majority, we need a strong majority. Maybe you need 66 or 75% of people on board to make any decision. Then you would force people to make more compromise
So
on shit.
my-
minimal.
I almost brought
you need
this up
about
earlier.
97%. You ever heard of the 3%er movement?
You need 6% to get a revolution. I know that number.
That's not what the 3%er movement believes.
They're
What's the
wrong.
3%er?
The three? No,
the
no,
3%er movement is the argument that you only
No.
need 3% of the population to
no.
rebel.
I believe you're misguided here.
Am I? I may be wrong. Educate me.
The 3% is 3% of Americans have served or are serving in armed forces.
Is it?
I'm.
I feel like that number is a lot higher than 3%.
No,
You'd
I
be
think it's
really
lower than
surprised.
that. I know the Marine Corps is less than 1%.
Well,
You'd be
yeah, it's
really
like less than
surprised.
the Marine Corps isn't a very large portion of
How
the
many
military.
Americans have
I'm
or
a-
are serving in the armed forces?
Percent.
Percent. But I was going to bring this up earlier. There's a huge difference to me in practical versus theoretical / personal politics. I believe in full-blown anarcho-capitalism. Fallout New Vegas.
20.4 million U.S. veterans.
Percent.
Less than 10%.
Less than 10%.
That's veterans, you know.
Yeah, if you're looking at
Active
400
duty.
million, that's about 5%.
Okay.
So, wow, yeah, that's a lot lower than I expected. I
It's
expected it to
incredibly
be
small.
closer to at least half. That's
Bear in mind, we have some major bias here. We're in a very Midwestern area, and we are surrounded by vets because we've got one of the biggest training posts nearby, and we're rural. So bear in mind that
my
bias.
father was also a veteran, so
Yes,
that
exactly.
hits me hard with
Uh-huh.
that.
You get
Yeah.
skewed.
And
That-
so his friends are going to be
Like,
vets,
the majority
and the
of my
people you
family,
grow up
too.
around happen to be vets because they were his friends.
Not really.
Anecdote.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Theoretically,
but-
when that happens, yeah, in my case, not necessarily.
My theoretical politics are very anarcho-capitalist. Practically, I understand that's not going to work for everyone, and I'm willing to cede some ground.
That's
Right.
how I.
That's why I'm a
I
practical
yeah, I think the
minarchist.
three of
I,
us.
I was
have
like,
that.
I have this big argument with my buddy Sean, and shout out to Sean Durbin if you ever listen to this podcast. But it's like, I argue with him about shit all the time because he's a very left-leaning Democrat, and I love him.
awesome.
And he brings a lot of good points to the table. Like when we discuss things, he at least can discuss things with like
I love
good
that.
factual
Good.
background, good statistics. Like he brings
Excuse me.
actual depth to a conversation. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I love it. But you know, there are just some things we fundamentally disagree on. And like sometimes he'll catch me in moments. Like one of my things is that like if we had a really good universal healthcare system, a single payer healthcare system, I would be more on board with that than the system we have now. And it's
yeah,
not. And
I would
he's
agree.
like, well, that's a super fucking liberal viewpoint. And it's like, yeah. But I just really hate the system we have now.
It's
and
progress
I'm,
towards
and
what
I'm,
I
And I'm just
idealize.
at the point where I'm just like, anything's kind of better than we have. And if that saves us money and overall, like, if it's progression, it's progression for
Yes.
me. And I'm willing to secede on some points. And it's kind of like my free market argument. It's like, yeah, you know, in my eyes, I'd burn down all the fucking companies that I thought were too big. But it's like, obviously, you know, that's not always the best option.
Yeah.
I think that letting companies fail on their own is true capitalism, and promoting, you know...
And the fact that they haven't been allowed to.
Yeah,
But
that's my
how
problem.
utilitarian is it of you to say, well, me burning them is them failing on their own? That's the utilitarian point.
Kind of, but not
Well,
really.
I mean, that isn't that kind of the
Because you
argument
could argue
that
the greater
you,
good
well,
is
hold on.
actually from a new company taking
Isn't
over
that
with
an
a better
argument
idea.
against personal responsibility?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. As long as you're willing to
Absolutely.
admit that, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll grant you that. Yeah.
No, utilitarianism is a garbage ideology.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
It just allows you to do too many dumb things in the name of.
You know, so I
progress.
was introduced to utilitarianism, God bless video games, in maximizing money. That was the driving force. And I, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, met someone who was a utilitarian, like the pinky out, appreciate that.
Fuck the British.
He was utilitarianist, and he wanted to maximize happiness.
It's a terrible metric.
Awful. Garbage.
The worst.
But it was still an interesting perspective.
Oh, for sure. Interesting.
See, the thing
Not
is
anyone I
that,
would
like-
seriously consider, but
I don't think that happiness should be the main metric that you view.
It's so
but I think it
subjective.
should be a
A
metric.
consideration?
Yeah,
right,
a
because
metric in a system.
most
If
Europeans
everyone
are
hates
happy with their healthcare system, but their like actual definable outcomes are significantly worse
Worse,
than the United
yeah.
States.
Mm-hmm.
Your cancer recovery rate's worse, and your time to see a doctor worse. Like, yeah, sure, like your basic stuff, like, you know, you break a bone and it doesn't bankrupt you. Like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like, Tim Pool made this argument, and I actually kind of respect this, and I agree to it. Is that Donnie? It is. Anyways, is that, like, your basic stuff, like, you know, your insulin, your EpiPens, like, your broken bones, like, your ER visits, those things should be covered, but, like, some of the other stuff, some of
Insulin's
the...
a hot topic.
Alright, so-
That's the, like, flagship for crony capitalism.
See, my problem with the insulin argument, and this is going to be a fucking really unpopular opinion, but unless you're like,
Oh, are you going for... Go ahead.
unless you're like your genetics are why you have diabetes
Okay.
and you have to take insulin.
So you think we should only treat type 1 diabetes publicly?
I think yes. I think
you
that
Because you have made-
I think if
diabetes,
you
yeah.
get type 2 diabetes, that was your personal choice in
And there is
some at
more
least
than
some
enough
aspect
free-
and regard, and there's enough free knowledge and resources to turn yourself around and.
I thought you were going to
not be
argue
like
against
that.
both types and go full survival of
No.
the fittest. I'm like,
And-
ouch.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, if you have a
that's why we
genetic,
have these talks.
yeah, I was
so-
like,
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
genetic
It's out there.
predisposition towards a disease, I'm all about helping. It's like you didn't get to make this choice. You
No.
didn't like. You just kind of got the shit end of the stick, and I have no problem helping people out and like donating to those kind of charities. And,
I
like, really
love
just
that a
giving to those
third
kind
of American
people.
healthcare bills are paid by public funding. Or public crowdsourcing.
Right.
Through
I don't think they
GoFundMe
should
and
have to be,
Patreon.
though.
Well, and
They shouldn't.
what
They
you
shouldn't
can
have to
do is you can also set up like things like that to gain money to buy medical debt. And
Uh-huh.
like pennies on the dollar from collection agencies who are trying to get it. Be like, yeah, I'll collect it, and just be like, yeah, guys, don't worry about it. You're good.
Yeah.
We bought your debt. You're good. You paid it off, yeah, for like $50 for the 10,000 you owed. It's good. I think that and that's happened before, and I think that should be
That's
something
like
that.
true angel investing almost. Like,
Well, right. It's just are you gonna free people from under the burden of their own self?
Yeah.
It's like, are there people out there who
I,
would do that?
I would
6,
love to
7
be in a
years ago.
position where I could just fucking clear a bunch of people's debts like that.
Right.
Like that would
Yeah,
be
there was,
amazing.
I think John Oliver, as much as I don't like that guy, they did that once. They were talking about like medical debt, and they're like, we bought a bunch of medical debt. We're not going to collect on it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe 6, 7 years ago, I had this idea: Tinder for taxes and debt. You can actively just go through this list. Basically, you scroll through GoFundMe and see, hey, there's this person struggling with type 2 diabetes, and the bill's related. No, I don't want to fund their healthcare. Would be your choice.
Fair.
Scroll. Here's this person who got in a car wreck because someone else was drunk driving, and they need a heart transplant, and they're currently on life support, and they have been for 30 days. And if they wake up, they're going to be under a mountain of insurmountable debt. Swipe right. I'm helping that shit. And then you get this slider for how much you want to participate. And simultaneously, you can see how much other, in general, people are participating, what its goal is. It's basically advanced GoFundMe for taxes and medical bills.
I could be cool with that.
I would
And
love
I know this
elective
is gonna
taxes.
sound
Yeah, I like that idea too. You get to decide where your money goes.
Yeah,
that's the
that's
truest
what I was
form
gonna
of
say.
voting.
I was like,
what are
if
we
you
gonna
do
fund?
elective?
Yeah.
I was like,
and we
if
have
you-
the technology.
I thought
We
we were
have
going
the
to say
technology.
it was elective charity, and I was like, if you do elective charity, I think you should get a tax write-off for it, because that's like getting. But if you get to choose elective taxing, I think that's the ultimate way to tax. And
Yeah.
it's just
That's
like
the
if
ultimate
none
way to
of us-
vote.
Yeah,
That's
if
the
none
ultimate
of
way
us
to vote.
agree-
What are we gonna fund as a
What
country?
if we went
if
from
none
a
of us agree
Republican
with
democracy
this war,
right now
then
to
none
a
of us
true democracy?
donate. True democracy.
we
gets-
got it.
It's
that
still
earlier, it's
it's
my
still
role.
ruled by the majority,
Right.
but I think it's
I think we
notably
need to
better than
move-
Republican
I
democracy.
think we need to move the majority to a,
How,
thicker, a heftier majority.
Why do you make that argument? That is better than a Republican form.
Lobbying.
I think representation. I think it's
In
better
short,
because
lobbying.
my argument for it is that we don't need representation
Okay,
in the same
now,
way because
what
we
if-
can connect faster than we used to ever be
Yes,
able to.
and
So
that's
would
what
you-
if we shrank the scale from a federal to a state level, instead of everything being, or not everything, but a majority of things being handled federally.
Mm-hmm.
All the federal did was national defense.
That's a
And-
Republican form of government.
Sort
hear
of.
me out.
Used to be.
Hear me out. All the federal
That's the true definition.
Yeah.
It's been
Yes.
bastardized, so it's
Yes.
not
The
become
true
equal.
conservative
federal
argument
government
is-
handles national defense and freedom of movement within itself. So if you want to move from
Interstate
Missouri,
commerce.
Yeah.
if you want to move from Missouri to Illinois, Missouri cannot prevent that unless they have a legitimate reason, such as you have a warrant.
Warrants or such.
And
So
then
there's-
Missouri was
you're
like, how do we
a-
want to handle marijuana? How do we want to handle taxation?
So, would you argue that you're a constitutionalist? Do you support the Constitution as it's written? Not at the federal government, but insofar as the 10th Amendment states that any powers that aren't enumerated in the Constitution to the
for
federal
the federal
government
government
are
are for the
reserved to
state.
the states. That's the 10th Amendment.
Yes.
That's the argument you're making.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. So what
Yes.
you're saying is we need a rebellion against the federal government to kick those fuckers back down to
Hey,
size.
too big.
Here's to Adam Kokesh.
Fuck yes.
I and the Fed. I think, and this is much more my practical politics. I would love even a Republican democracy if it was at the state level. We are way too big of a society as the United States of America.
Yeah, it's too geographically and culturally diverse
Mhm.
to be able to
It's-
create overarching
it's just
laws
too
that
diverse.
Illinois
actually
is the ideal anecdotal argument to that. Chicago,
rules the whole
population
state.
wise, rules the entire state. Most of the state is farming.
Is farmland.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very red until you get to Chicago, and then
Yep.
it is deep blue.
It's almost exclusively red until you get to the suburbs.
Yeah.
I think Carbondale is the only county
There's a lot
that
of
is not red.
Which is
This-
college town to begin with, so
Mhm.
they're notably blue normally anyways.
Right, you have
Yes.
all those liberal professors and stuff. But
Which
yeah,
good on them for having an opinion.
right. I may think you're an idiot. For
Everyone's
the
a
opinion you
lab
have,
rat,
but stand by it if you're gonna have it. Shit.
Oh shit!
I think
guess,
we're about to see the formation of city-states, and especially with the current climate of America, we're gonna see balkanization and the formation of city-states, meaning that cities will be given
more autonomy.
right, even than they are now.
Not autonomy. They'll have to pick up the slack.
As far as what?
As far as the other governments, whether federal or state, aren't going to be able to support them.
Fair.
Especially not in ways that excessively blue cities want them to.
Which will naturally create autonomy.
Right, because
It's going to naturally create autonomy because we're already seeing it crumbling. We can't keep taking on debt. We're probably going to go to war with China over our debts.
we are definitely going to war with China, and it is over many things.
I
including
hope
that.
it's about Hong Kong.
Well,
I
it's
hope
gonna-
it's about Hong Kong and the Uyghurs. Man.
Fuck the
A
CCP.
lot of it's gonna be due to the fact that
Hell
we
yeah.
owe them like fucking 30, 40 million $1 trillion.
But they can't collect on it.
Yeah, because it
Well,
would
no, they
destroy them
can.
a little too.
No, they can't.
How?
One, they can't win a war with us.
Fair.
They have numbers on us. We have technology.
Right
Yeah.
now.
We have like 12 aircraft carriers. They have 0.
Yes.
They have two.
Two.
But they're like so tiny compared to our super carriers.
Oh my god, it's glorious.
Yeah, and we built even bigger ones. Shout out to the
Two.
General R4 class.
If this is the trump card America has right now, do you know what Bretton Woods is?
Say that again?
Bretton Woods.
No.
After World War II, after the Nuremberg trials, America called a bunch of representatives from a myriad of sources together at Bretton Woods, think Camp David. And they signed this agreement, and there were a myriad of terms, one of which was we're going to enter a coalition. Anyone in the coalition will come to the defense of someone else in the coalition, hence why America sucks Israel's dick. And on top of that, America, or the United States of America, is just going to protect all sea lanes, free of charge. We're just going to do that.
We have the
And
British
it
Navy. by
opened
law.
up the entire world for trading.
Yeah.
And
That's what a lot of people
we
don't realize.
kept inducting these USSR satellite states and these Middle East states, and we just kept building this up bigger and bigger and bigger. And
So
the
basically,
second US says, I'm done, costing me too much, it's going to collapse. Europe is going to go back into infighting over borders. Russia is going to go back to protecting the horde lands, the belt around itself. And
You
then
don't
there's
think
going
they'll
to
try and take over Europe?
They can't.
Why not?
They don't have the numbers.
numbers.
Russia as
Not right
a cultural heritage is on the major decline.
That's fair.
And it's because of population control. Any civilization that performs population control is doomed to death.
Unless you're China.
I was gonna say
No, they're doomed to death. But even if it wasn't to come to the extremes of, hey, Russia's trying to take care of the horde lands, they're satellite states. Even if we just say we're pulling out of Bretton Woods, China suddenly has to reform all of its trade alliances and protect them at a major cost. Navies are so incredibly expensive to field. Amazingly expensive. And the only reason America was able to do it is there's like 7 check marks that you can hit to become a superpower if you have one of the check marks. And the United States has all of them. Every single one.
Like superpower, yeah.
We have arable water. We have access to deep waters. We have access to population growth. It just goes. And we can say, see ya. And any single...
I would love to see us
state.
become a little more isolationist. Pull
I
out
think-
of the 170
George
plus
Washington
bases we
had
have.
2 pieces of advice for us when he left office. Isolationism, no political parties. We have said fuck you to both of those.
If you want to read more about what I'm discussing right now, The Accidental Superpower and the Coming Global Disorder, Peter Zion.
Do you, I'm not going to remember that, so I'll get it off the podcast.
I'll send it to Zach.
But yeah,
Or,
perfect.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah. But, you know what Thucydides' trap is?
No.
This Thucydides' trap is that when a rising superpower, aka China, confronts a existing superpower, aka America, 70% of the time it results in war.
Huh. Interesting.
So when you say we're going to China over the national debt, buddy, we're going to war with China guaranteed over a myriad of things.
Just because that's how it is.
Yeah, if you don't think we're going to war with China, you are functionally retarded.
I really want a driving priority, personally, to be the human rights and what's going on with Uyghurs and Hong Kong. Because I get livid about that. And that's actually where I have to bring myself down mentally.
They're
Because
Nazis.
I can't... I get so
True
worked up about it.
authoritarian.
They
fucking
are
regimes.
they're doing the
They are
exact same thing that
actively
Nazis did.
exterminating... They are genociding a culture.
Yeah.
Right. And
Fascism.
we can't speak against the Chinese because these people
You
are
know,
money-grubbing bastards.
I honestly hope this gets pulled from YouTube for what I'm discussing.
We don't get enough views for that, sorry.
Maybe one day
Maybe
it'll
one
get like
day, yeah.
backlogged and people be like, bro, they were
What the
fucking on
fuck?
the real.
Yeah.
But on that, they're trying to fucking
Yeah, we need
close
to
and
go.
get out of here. So
Alright.
I guess we'll call it a final. But this was a
Yeah.
good episode. We had good conversation.
This was
all
good,
had a
yeah.
good
Man,
time.
if you have me on again, I'll have read 2-3 more books. It'll be a completely different topic.
We will definitely have you on again.
Yeah, it's like a few
Maybe in
episodes
a
from
couple
now.
months or so.
Well, yeah.
Mhm.
Give me time.
Probably
So we
around
have
like
some-
November.
Be definitely good. Though.
Sounds good.
That was
Perfect.
good.
All right, this is
was
the
a pleasure
third
being on.
episode of Have a Beer With Us.